Joe Hudson opens the conversation by highlighting a fundamental truth about human behavior. Much of what we do is driven by the avoidance of uncomfortable emotions. He invites listeners to experiment with trying to stop feeling every emotion they are experiencing, noting that such suppression requires muscular constriction and sustained tension, which we commonly recognize as stress. This avoidance mechanism, while seemingly protective, paradoxically perpetuates the very emotions we seek to escape. Hudson explains that the emotions we resist are often invited back into our lives through repeated patterns, creating a cycle where we unconsciously recreate situations that force us to confront these feelings. This dynamic is not a flaw, but an intelligent design of the psyche, offering continuous opportunities for healing and wholeness. By repeatedly encountering the emotions we avoid, we are given chances to recognize, accept, and integrate these parts of ourselves. Hudson's perspective reframes emotional resistance as a doorway rather than a barrier, emphasizing that embracing rather than fleeing from difficult feelings is essential for genuine transformation and freedom. A central framework Joe Hudson shares is the concept of the three brains within each person: the intellect, prefrontal cortex; the heart, mammalian emotional brain; and the gut, reptilian nervous system. He stresses that true and lasting transformation requires addressing all three simultaneously. Often, people intellectually understand what they need to change, but remain stuck because their heart and gut have not aligned with that knowledge. For example, someone might know they shouldn't eat unhealthy food, but continue to do so because their emotional and somatic systems have not integrated that understanding. Hudson points out that Western society tends to overemphasize the intellect, neglecting the emotional and somatic intelligence that is crucial for embodied change. The heart and gut are more about receiving and allowing, which can lead to quicker and deeper transformation. When all three brains are engaged, change becomes natural and sustainable. This holistic approach challenges the common notion that transformation is purely a cognitive process and invites a more embodied, integrated path. Joe introduces the idea of subtractive development, a concept that contrasts with the common cultural narrative of growth as accumulation: more knowledge, more possessions, more achievements. Drawing from Zen traditions, he explains that growth can also come from subtracting, from letting go, and from receiving rather than constantly striving. This approach requires flexibility, knowing when to act and when to allow, when to add and when to subtract. He cautions against dualistic thinking that labels adding as good and subtracting as bad, or vice versa. Instead, Hudson advocates for a balanced internal orientation that recognizes the futility of always getting somewhere. True growth, in his view, is about recognizing that there is no final destination, only ongoing unfolding. This perspective invites a gentler, more spacious way of relating to personal development and life itself. Hudson critiques the dominant educational and spiritual paradigms that rely heavily on intellectual transmission, talking, reading, and conceptual understanding, arguing that these methods often fall short of producing real change. He shares his own journey of skepticism and authority issues, which led him to design personal experiments to test spiritual and psychological teachings in his own life. This experiential approach allowed him to discern what was true and useful for him beyond mere intellectual assent. He encourages teaching and learning modalities that prioritize direct experience and experimentation over abstract knowledge. For example, rather than explaining the concept of wonder, he suggests engaging in practices that evoke wonder and observing its effects on fear or other emotions. This method fosters embodied wisdom and integration, making transformation more accessible and authentic. Joe Hudson emphasizes the critical importance of early childhood emotional experiences, particularly from birth to age 8, in shaping our emotional health and capacity for wholeness. He shares his personal experience with hand-in-hand parenting, a method that allows children full emotional expression within gentle boundaries. This approach fosters a deep sense of being okay as a whole person, reducing shame and punishment that often teach children parts of themselves are unacceptable. He contrasts this with common parenting patterns that suppress emotions like anger, fear, or excitement, which inadvertently teach children that these feelings are not okay. Since young children's sense of self is not yet fully developed, these messages become internalized as core beliefs of unworthiness. Hudson credits his parenting approach for the emotional resilience and sweetness of his daughters and advocates for this compassionate, accepting model as a profound spiritual practice that nurtures future generations' emotional health. A significant portion of the conversation is devoted to the voice in the head, particularly the repetitive negative self-talk that many people experience. Hudson describes this internal dialogue as always containing some degree of falsehood and being largely ineffective, yet paradoxically, many people cling to it as a motivator or a necessary evil. He challenges the common belief that this internal critic is needed to be productive, pointing out that freeing oneself from it liberates vast amounts of energy. Rather than trying to silence or fight the voice, Hudson recommends experimenting with different ways of relating to it, responding playfully, compassionately, or even with humor. This shift in relationship undermines the voice's power and reveals its true nature as a projection of disowned parts of ourselves. By changing how we respond to the internal critic, we can diminish its grip and cultivate a more spacious, loving inner environment. Hudson explores the profound changes that occur when a person develops emotional fluidity, the ability to fully feel and allow emotions without resistance. He explains that decision-making becomes clearer because emotions are the primary drivers of choices, and when fear or shame no longer block clarity, decisions flow naturally. Relationships improve as well, since emotional fluidity reduces the need to control or change others and fosters authentic acceptance. In business and leadership, Hudson notes that leaning into previously avoided emotions can unlock new solutions and creativity. He describes emotions as signals that point to unmet needs or unexpressed truths, and when fully felt, they transform into clarity, determination, or aliveness. This reframing of emotions from obstacles to allies rewires how we understand and engage with our internal experience, leading to greater freedom and effectiveness in all areas of life. Joe Hudson shares his personal journey with non-duality, including years of meditation and spiritual seeking, and how awakening to the unchanging ground of being initially brought peace, but also emotional avoidance. He describes a common pitfall where individuals mistake awakening for the end of growth, leading to emotional suppression and a lack of joy and love. For him, the real work began when he recognized that emotional integration was necessary to complement the spaciousness of awakening. He advises that emotional work after awakening involves dragging the monk back into hell, meaning intentionally engaging with difficult feelings rather than escaping into peaceful states. Hudson highlights the importance of emotional intimacy and relationship as powerful contexts for this work, encouraging people to embrace the full spectrum of human experience, including its messiness and vulnerability, as part of spiritual maturity. Hudson offers a nuanced view of ego, defining it broadly as self-definition that includes both feelings of importance and unimportance. He challenges the simplistic notion that ego is only about inflated self-importance, pointing out that resistance to receiving compliments or feeling unworthy are also expressions of ego. Healthy ego work involves flexibility, the ability to hold strong boundaries and power when necessary, yet also to soften and be permeable. In leadership, Hudson stresses the importance of owning one's power fully and responsibly. Leaders who deny their influence or power tend to be more dangerous than those who acknowledge it with humility and care. He warns against megalomania, which he sees as a distortion of power arising from disowned feelings. Ultimately, a balanced ego allows leaders to wield their influence with integrity and fosters safer, more effective organizations. Forgiveness and apology are described by Hudson as massive freedom machines that facilitate deep transformation when done authentically. He distinguishes between apologizing with shame and apologizing with responsibility, noting that the former often perpetuates harmful patterns, while the latter opens the door to change. Similarly, forgiveness given out of obligation lacks transformative power, whereas forgiveness arising from genuine heartbreak expands one's capacity to love. Hudson emphasizes that forgiveness is as much about forgiving oneself as it is about forgiving others. He shares stories of people who find healing not by receiving acknowledgement from those who hurt them, but by fully grieving and releasing the pain internally. This process of heartbreak and grief is essential for increasing emotional capacity and moving toward wholeness, underscoring that forgiveness is an inward journey as much as an interpersonal one. In discussing leadership, Hudson highlights the power of leading with love rather than obligation or fear. He shares examples of leaders who embody fierce love, those who draw clear boundaries while deeply caring for the people they serve. This approach, he argues, is not only more fulfilling, but also more effective and sustainable. Leaders who love deeply are better equipped to navigate challenges and inspire positive change. Hudson also reflects on the evolving nature of leadership in the context of rapid technological and societal shifts, including the rise of AI. He stresses that the best leaders recognize the relational nature of power and embrace their responsibility with humility and love. This mindset fosters environments where people can thrive, innovate, and contribute meaningfully, which is crucial as humanity faces unprecedented transitions. Looking toward the future, Joe Hudson contemplates the impact of artificial intelligence on human work and identity. He asserts that knowledge and skill-based work are increasingly being automated, leaving wisdom, the capacity to make sound decisions and embody emotional clarity, as the uniquely human domain. While AI can provide information and suggestions, the choice to act with courage, love, and integrity remains a human responsibility. Hudson envisions a future where emotional intelligence and wisdom become the primary currencies of success and fulfillment. He encourages cultivating these qualities as essential preparation for navigating the profound transformations AI will bring. This shift challenges individuals and societies to deepen their self-awareness, compassion, and relational capacities, positioning emotional clarity as the foundation for thriving in an AI-enhanced world.